Thanks. And Kennedy, I'm one of those Mzungus from California. I'm one of the gringos, so forgive me. Just a little bit. I'm blown away by every story I've heard so far. All I could do just to keep my composure sitting there, which makes it a little bit harder standing here. Okay. The moral of my story today is be careful who you have a beer with. In the summer of 2004, I just sold TravelSmith, and I just become a dad. And I committed to myself I was going to take some time off, relax, enjoy being having my new family, and wait for my muse to come about what I might want to do next in life. And I found myself at a party in the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. And at this party, I met Danger Man. Danger Man is actually a guy named Dan German, who just happens to have the coolest Gmail address on the planet. And Dan had also sold a business, and we were having our beer, and I made the really fatal mistake of telling him that I was really interested in coming back to the social sector. And he told me about this organization that he was supporting in East Africa called CFW Shops, which was using a franchise model to try to expand access to basic medicines. And I thought, that's really cool. Here's a way of using business principles to really solve a big, hairy social problem. And one thing led to another. My wife and I gave some money to this. Dan persuaded me to join the board. And then he asked me to come over to Africa to see what I could do to help. And what I found when I got there were 60 shops like this. And the unfortunate thing was that most of them were failing financially rather badly. And they weren't having terribly much impact. And I remembered something that my first grader taught me, which was this little exercise they teach you in first grade, which is, I notice, I wonder. Which is a good place to start when you're looking for an aha. Introduction to science, if you will. And what I noticed was that, like the owner of this shop, there was about half the time they were treating patients, and about half the time they were waiting for sick people to walk into the door. And I thought maybe there's a solution to this problem. You can solve both of these issues here. And so we did a little experiment. The I wonder was, what if we got them out of the store, into the communities, going door to door, going to schools and churches and so forth. And so we concocted a very simple little promotion. We were going to screen every kid in these neighborhoods for diseases, and then offer a promotion. I come from the merchandising world. We got to offer a discount on a bed net. A lot of kids have malaria. Lo and behold, the uptake on this promotion was that 2/3 of the families bought a mosquito net. And that led to another what if, which was, okay, that worked pretty well. What if we got rid of the store altogether and just went door to door? And I'm like, hold the phone. Isn't there someone else who's thought of this little business idea before me? And one's thoughts turned to Amway and Tupperware and, yes, Avon. And I went back and I did my homework, and what does one learn? Well, Avon started in the US in the 19th century. What was it like? Mostly rural, agricultural. There was poor access to quality, important products, and women were looking for a source of cash income. And I'm like, well, there's some similarities here to where we're working. And this, of course, is the moment of inspiration that led to Living Goods. And at that point, of course, I also asked the question, what do I need to do next? And obviously, I had to become an Avon lady, which is what I did. And I donned my bag, and I learned a few tricks about selling makeup. So flash forward, 10 years later, Living Goods is now serving 5 million people across East Africa, with 6,000, actually 500 now, it's ticking every day, community health workers. At the same time, the sort of storefront models are very hard to grow. That one has stayed at 70 or 80 shops. We have gotten the cost of this down to $2 a person. That means that a family of 5 can get comprehensive home health care for $10 a year. And we've proved through independent research that it's reducing child mortality by 25%. This is a big problem, though. We can't solve it alone. So part of our core philosophy is how do we help others replicate and expand this? And so we are now working with 3 of the largest NGOs who are replicating this in other places. And I'll share just one of my favorite examples of progress, which is that last year, 50 of the health workers who we support in Uganda ran for public office. And many of them won. So this founding aha moment, I think, for Living Goods led to what became our core philosophy, which is to continually look for ideas that have the potential for ground-shaking impact, but that can be tested quick and cheap. And so if I were to leave you with my thought about this topic, it's that epiphanies, I think, a little bit don't come by chance. They don't come by a muse magically lighting on your shoulder. They come really from trying a lot of shit. So that's my plan, to continue trialing a lot of shit, and that's a recommendation.
Okay, so we all know how successful you are, so I want to talk about a failure. So after you graduated from Yale with a degree in architecture, you decided to open a bike shop. It failed. I'm just wondering, as you walk around Oxford, do you maybe want to give it another shot here? If you do, I'm in.
All right.
Location.
Well, I'm 0 for 1 on bike shops,
No.
and I'm 0 for 1 on being a filmmaker, and I'm 0 for 1 on a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
And
well, I want to ask you about that.
Yes.
So a lot of people, you failed that early. That was one of the first things you tried. It failed. A lot of people never would have tried to do anything again. So what's your insider tip for how to be open to the fact that anytime you go down a path, it might be a dead end, and you just got to start again?
I remember when you asked that question earlier, I remember asking almost the same question to one of our health promoters in Nairobi. And I said, she was one of our most successful health promoters. I said, how did you do it? Particularly when it's hard early on, when you've become a health promoter, before you were doing something else, and you got to get people to trust you with their health. And I said, what's your secret? And she had just like the pithiest one-word answer. She said, persistence. Failure is a part of success. So if you're not failing a lot, you're not on your road to success.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to ask you is, I remember talking about Living Goods at least 5 years ago, and you said you would never work with government. You said the whole point here is government has failed to deliver. We're trying to prove another model. We won't work with government. So fast forward, and today in Kenya and Uganda, government is a really important partner for Living Goods.
You make me eat my words.
Well, I'm just interested. I'm interested in what you can share about the fact that sometimes you also have to be open to changing course on what's a really core tenet of your model, because not everyone is good at doing that. So how do you stay open to that?
Well, it helps to have a wife who continually points out your shortcomings in a gracious, very helpful way. But and a 13-year-old now who's gotten even better at that. But we're on a path, and the path is to impact at scale. And the health sector is one that really is you put health and education and roads, and clean air. And this really has to be, the government has to have ownership of these areas. And the question really, I think, which came slowly to me and now has become a conviction, is not if you should work with government. The question is how.
Yeah.
And we're on a journey around that. And I think the first big piece of that for us was working on the regulatory space. The solution to expanding health equity, a lot rests in expanding what basic door-to-door healthcare workers can do.
Yeah.
And so the first piece of that journey for us was working with the Ugandan government and getting them to expand to allow health workers to treat malaria, to do blood tests, to give hormonal contraceptives, and so forth.
So I think the way I see it is also that you have changed course a lot, but you have always stayed clear on your mission, which is to save kids' lives. So when you're really clear on that, you can iterate a lot on how you actually get there.
Yes, very true. Yeah.
So what's your favorite U2 song?
So it's actually not a song, it's a performance.
Okay.
And that you two did, I can't remember, the after Katrina. They came and did a fundraising performance with Green Day, and they did a stirring rendition of The Saints Are Coming. And if you haven't heard it, YouTube it.
Okay, we will.
It'll move you.
Thank you, Chuck. A lot of people want to have a beer with you now.
Be careful.